Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Okay, hashtag 30 Days of Magic. Today's day 6. Welcome to our live. Michelle, and we're going to hang out with you for a little bit right now. And we're going to talk about a couple of different things that we days leading up to this powerful Lionsgate energy. And our main focus for today is going to be demystifying the mystical. And so we're going to talk about what that means in a moment. We're just going to let the energy settle. How are you feeling?
Good. Yeah.
Are you good?
Yeah.
We're super nervous right now just to like own that and feel that in our body. Like whenever we're doing something is outside of our comfort zone. And so here we are. I don't think either one of us prefer to do this kind of interaction, but we have the most amazing conversations
every time.
And they're so jam-packed, full of amazing insight and vulnerability and honesty and truth. And we're going to talk about truth today and what truth feels like in our body. And so we just decided last night to do this live this morning. We don't really have a questions. Leave your comments in the leave your feedback in the comments and let us know what you're thinking as we see what messages Spirit has for us today. So, day 6, hashtag 30 days of magic. We're a super powerful energy this weekend. As we were just connecting our energy and our vibration, we were talking a lot about yesterday and the heaviness of yesterday. I think today is going to be similar. And, just lots of feelings, lots of emotion, lots of awareness, spontaneous. Are you feeling that?
We're definitely feeling a lot of emotions coming to the surface. I've been recognizing with myself that there's a lot that where, things that I think that I have thought I've mastered. Love and compassion for that, but also going through the complete feeling and honoring that as well. So it feels a bit like a roller coaster.
Yeah. Totally a roller coaster, and love and compassion always for ourselves. And so let's start with this idea that you just mentioned, which I think is a great point to step into demystifying the word awakening. And so a lot of what I would like to share right now is that the intention that I feel called to share this morning around demystifying the mystical is that everything that we're going to talk about right now is happening to everybody. And so when we think about, like you just shared, different levels of understanding or feeling that we've mastered something, right? When we've been on this path of awakening for a little bit of time, we go through these stages. And I just really want to connect also. Right? And we have these waves of awakening that have been happening. $15, $20 that feel that they've mastered certain skills. We have people that are just starting, in recent years to ask questions about what am I doing on the planet? What's happening on the planet? Where do I fit into what's happening? Why do things feel strange or different? Or why am I not satisfied or happy? And then some people may be just exploring these questions for the first time right now. And so when we think about awakening in this word, I really just want to talk about that for a second. What does awakening mean to you?
Well, for myself, I see it as a evolution of consciousness, changing the way that we think.
So,
And just understanding that there are different ways that we can perceive our reality, there's different ways that we can perceive ourselves, and to see that, I think we come in with a lot of limitations through our parents, through our culture, through our upbringing around our society, and awakening to me to realize that there are different ways in which we can And I think what the first questions that come up in this process are about is just questioning, is this really reality? Am I actually seeing truth? And how can I change this truth? How can I take control and take power to create the reality I want to create? And it's easy to talk about these things, totally different to actually to do it.
Yeah, but let's pause there for a minute because I really like this. I feel the same. So we're waking up to the possibility that something else might exist. And so we're talking about questions. So the first kinds of questions that I think we start to ask ourselves are, what the fuck? Right? Like basically sums up all of the questions. Like what is God or spirit, or what are my beliefs? We're going to talk about today around different realities, different dimensions. We're going to get there, so please stay with us. And yeah, so these first questions that we start to ask ourselves basically, who am I? What am I doing here? Is this all there is? And what am I going to do with that? Right? And these are the initial questions that if you're just starting to reflect on these types of ideas, and congratulations because you're right on time. And if you've been sitting with these questions for a little while, then likely you've been making changes in your life, right? So then we move from this questioning stage to satisfaction that start to emerge. What did like? Can you take us back to that time for you?
Well, I think it was just a lot about, questioning, like we were saying, going through these questions, but then having to go through, like, okay, so what is it that I want? What is it that, who is it that I want to be? What do I want to work towards? And then, but realizing the gap between these types of questions requires us to face so much of our fears, our limitations. It makes us have to question our belief system and to be willing to face these questions.
And some people are full stop there.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, it takes courage to face
it. Takes so much courage.
But and there's nothing wrong with that stop, because I think that stop is part of the process. I think we have to have that fear hold us back until we reach a point of being so unsatisfied that then we're shot forward.
When we're so sick and tired of our patterns and ourselves.
Of ourselves, yeah.
And this is, I think, the catalyst for change, right? Yeah. And so for that the only choice that remains is to let it go, right?
And to change, to willingly want to change.
Want to change. And so what I've noticed over the years of working with other people is that when we start to see the pattern and we're like, oh, okay, I've done this before, this feels familiar, that person seems like this person from this time of time. We start making these connections, we can start to feel encouraged, not discouraged that we're still in the pattern, but rather see it as like, oh, I can see my pattern, because we can only change what we're aware of. And so just a little encouragement in that stage, if that's where you're at, once we're sort of in this place of feelings of dissatisfaction, and now we've got the pattern and we're like, okay, I'm going to break through this pattern and let it go, then I think the question comes up around, what do I want?
Yeah.
Right? What are my desires? What are our true desires?
Which actually, I found in my own process, those to be the harder questions. Yeah. Because it was like, if I can recognize that I could have anything I want, my truth is. This was also hard to distinguish, because then there was going through the process of obtaining certain things that I thought I wanted, only to realize, nope, that's not it either. And I felt like a big part of the process was just learning what I don't want.
And I love Abraham Hicks for this, because Abraham teaches us that through the contrast, right? Through obtaining all of the things that we think we want, we realize that actually that's not what I wanted. And then it supports us in fine-tuning and negotiating with ourselves around what we think is possible. Yes, and the more healing work we do, the more transcendence we receive from our limitations, then the more possibility expands. And so right now, I think we both feel like, and hoping that you feel like this too, that there are limitless possibilities, and sometimes I don't even want to speak what I might want, because I don't want my mind to limit the potential of what is available to me. And so sitting in this place of identifying desire and what do I truly want versus what I've been taught to want, or what I think I'm allowed to have, or sorry, I got distracted with that for a second, but I think we're good. And sort of removing those blocks can and realizing that it's a constant state. We're going to be doing this forever, constantly reevaluating, learning, growing, evolving. So inevitably our desires are going to change.
Absolutely.
And circling back to the courage to make those changes.
Level of fear. And with that fear, we always have a choice. Are we going to face the fear, or are we going to let it hold us back? And sometimes I think part of it is letting it hold us back until, like we were saying, we get sick of it, and then we face it, and then we elevate to a different level again. But it's a constant evolution. It's a constant process. And we keep being asked to face a new level of fears. So the courage is about facing those fears, not this idea that we ever become fearless.
Never.
But just recognizing, no, fear is always going to come up, but what are we going to do with it?
And we're going to totally circle back to that in a moment. And I think what we're talking about right now sums up the last two things. And one thing that we touched on earlier this week in 30 Days of Magic is following our impulses. And so when we're receiving the impulse of desire and what do I really want, what do I want to cultivate, what do I want to experience, what do I want my reality to look like, to follow those impulses with inspired action. And so then feeling like, okay, this is a desire. And so, I mean, this is a really big topic of awakening, but really these are some of the stages that we're thinking about, and seeing that this is a cyclical process, right? And so it's not that we're awakening once and then we're
done.
And like you said, we're coming back to this idea of mastery. Thinking, especially in these last few days, why is this feeling coming up? Why is this emotion coming up? Why is this pattern here? I thought I healed that. I thought I transformed that. I transmuted that energy. I learned. I integrated. But fuck, now it's back again. Like what? And it's just going another layer deeper to really give us an opportunity to demonstrate what we've learned, right? And our comfortability in the process of awakening.
Level offers us like transcendence from the last level, in that, okay, yeah, I've taken care of that. I'm not going to go through those challenges or those problems again. And that feels great. But then the new level asks new things of us. And so there's new challenges, new lessons, new things to understand and awaken within us. And so depending on how we approach that, and like we said, like new fears, it doesn't necessarily feel easier, but it does feel more empowering. And it does feel, I feel, it feels very empowering in the sense that we start to see that, like, we got this, it doesn't mean that life gets less hard.
Right.
It just means that we react to life at a completely different way, where we're recognizing I'm in control of this, and I can work through this.
Trusting ourselves. Like trusting myself that it's not so much about preventing life from happening to me, or expecting that with each new level of awareness or awakening or mastery or whatever, that somehow life becomes easy. Because life is just life, and things are always going to happen. And that's what we're doing. We're just cycling through this process. But my ability to trust myself that I've got this, I've been through this, or I've been through worse, or I know that I can up-level my skills and tackle this challenge. It's that trust in self.
That's right? It. Yeah, where we really start to believe differently, that we're not going to go back into those old patterns and behaviors, which I think is important, that these patterns and behaviors eventually become obsolete, and that we do transcend them. Only then to discover new levels of patterns and behaviors. But again, seeing like when we can actually witness our progress and celebrate our progress, I think we can see that it's in honoring like how far we've come, that then it helps us to see that we can still go further.
And I love that for right now, because we were just saying we've known each other for 12 years. And if we think back to the way in which we met and the circumstances and then the evolution of self, it's so important, I feel, for me to have community to share and to talk with about these things. And I value our relationship so much for that reason. Because we have really been able to witness the evolution in one another. And so, again, not that life is easy always, but if I'm having a hard day, you're like, Anjali, you're good. Remember when? And I'm like, oh yeah, okay, cool. And then vice versa, right? It's like, no, like seeing your transformation, Michelle, inspires me in these ways. Like, remember when we were there, and now we're here. And so community, connection, to be able to be on this journey together. And so if you're in a place and you're watching us right now, and I think connecting to the hashtag 30 Days of Magic, for those of you that are participating in that with me this month, the main reason why I feel that I was inspired to connect with the online community in that way is because I feel that there's so many people in towns and cities and countries, in places around the world where maybe you are alone, right? And maybe people aren't having the opportunity to have the kind of conversations that we're blessed to have, that maybe you don't have people around you. And so the inspiration for today and for us to be here and share is to offer that connection with you all. And so that, if we can make our world a little smaller through technology and use social media to connect in positive vibration of the planet, that's our intention, I think. Demystifying the mystical. So the second part that kind of came to me meditation this morning to discuss is these ideas and concepts around the spiritual realm. And so without going too much into, let's just call it for what it is, the traumatization of society through religion, right? And so I think that when we have different experiences with religion, with church, with our upbringing, with our understanding of God, goddess, spirituality, the spiritual realm, we can have all kinds of stories that we're not going to try to unpack right now. But the invitation for me to all of you is to, for a moment, step into this idea that in my mind and in my immediate 3D reality, that's not all that exists. Right? And so wherever you're at in your journey, a couple of these words, multiple realities, multiple that exist simultaneously in these multiple and talking about time and the time-space continuum. And this is a really big topic to try to break down, but let's just talk about these concepts for a second, starting with maybe the fact that time is linear and time is a construct, right? And so what we're really talking about when we're saying multiple realities existing, multiple timelines for us to choose from, or multiple versions of us all existing simultaneously. How does that feel for you to dive into?
Well, it's definitely something I'm still kind of stretching into. But what I like about considering these concepts is that it takes me out of things that I'm so certain to believe in, like the idea of time, taking for granted these belief systems that I was taught since I was born. And to just question the reality of this, and what does it mean then if I take this limitation away? If I take away this idea that this is the only time that I exist in, these kinds of things, what does that part of me that on a mental level loves exploring this, the other part of me that goes, well, that's crazy, and what, and like so many things, it's like, how can I believe in something that I can't prove?
Right.
But then it becomes like, well, like all science, we can prove anything that we want to prove. So it's just a matter of practicing it. And so it's, I feel like these concepts have come up to challenge me to practice my relationship with time and to try to experience something different. But it's definitely, a completely new concept that, like I said, I have to stretch into. It's not something that I'm just like, oh yeah, that makes sense.
And we're throwing these words around. Like, I know in my feed, I'm not sure who you're all following, so stay tuned for tomorrow, Monday, hashtag 30 Days of Magic, because we're going to be talking about social media. But on my social media, there's lots of language around, like we're jumping timelines and connecting it to this experience of, past, present, future self, and that's a timeline, right? So the timeline of you, past, present, and future. But then being able to sit with yourself in an awareness that your past self is in existence in the same time as your present self is in existence, as the same time as the future self is in existence. And if we're doing any kind of meditation practice, I think that this is a good way to tap into what that feels like. So I can sit here in my physical body at the age and stage that I am, and I can connect to a part of myself that's 4 years old or 5 years old. My body, what that version of myself explore a memory or a thought or a vision that brings me back into that time. So in essence, it's existing because I'm in that age and stage feeling all of those things. And the same is true for future self. Future self is a little bit, I think for me anyways, a little more challenging to jump into because it's more about again coming back to the limitations of what do I think I'm going to be like versus like what do I desire to be, and calling that in without limiting how magnificent that version of me is going to be. And so I think in this way is an example of a timeline and different versions of ourselves that exist simultaneously, and then doing inner work is really jumping between these timelines, right? Is going back to the memory or the experience that still has an energetic charge, bringing that into the present moment, feeling and moving that energy and lessening the charge to give more opportunity and spaciousness to the future self, right?
Yeah. And you know, one symbol that I find really helpful, and it really is aligned with the whole Lionsgate portal that we're coming into in these things, is the infinity symbol. Because this is one of the reasons we work with symbols is because symbols can communicate a lot of information through just one image. And it's working with these images that then can provoke different understandings and feelings and provoke mystical experiences in ways that we can't maybe qualify through our words and through our mind. And so the infinity symbol, one way we can qualify it to conceptualize what it means, but it goes beyond this as well, is to see that when we're looking at this sideways figure eight, the present moment is that middle point. And all energy that we're creating in the present moment is the energy that comes back to us and the energy we move into. And so when you're talking about this idea of like going back into the past to bring that into the present moment, it's showing us that we have this capacity in this present moment to actually shift that energy to be what we want it to be. Thinking about the future aspect, we're also thinking about, okay, whatever I'm doing in this present moment is creating the energy that I'm walking into. So it's checking in with ourselves constantly to say, is this the energy I want to keep moving into? And taking control of that, taking responsibility for that, to say, okay, if I desire a life of joy, of peace, of trust, of faith, of these things, am I actually doing that in the present moment?
Right now, embodying that energy to experience later. And as you're talking, it just keeps coming into my head, the law of cause and effect, right? And there are certain universal laws that govern the world, like govern the totality of experience. I don't even want to limit it by saying the world, because it literally is the universe, the law of the universe. And one of the most important laws of the 7 that we can work with is a law of cause and effect. And really boiling that down to what you're sharing is that is every thought, it's every emotion, it's every energetic experience that we have that is either oftentimes keeping us stuck in a past pattern or experience or storyline, or projecting us into an experience that maybe we don't want to have. And so when we think to ourselves, oh, I'm doing all of these things, why am I still having this happen to me? I think that this is a really important place of power, and just to connect with your symbol of infinity, symbol, if we can stand in the center of that and change the vibration of what we're to my energetic vibration and my understanding of the principle of cause and effect.
Mhm.
Because if I'm going to think something, then that's going to have a ripple effect. If I'm going to act like something, it's going to have a ripple effect. If I'm going to speak something, all of that is going to have a ripple effect. And so, whether we're reverberating between past or future, it's like being able to stand in that center in a masterful way where I understand the power of my thoughts and my words and my actions as the creation of my reality.
And taking full responsibility for it.
Full responsibility. Yeah. Oh my gosh. If you've ever sat in a circle with me, if you are not willing to take personal responsibility for the experience of your reality, then start there. Because, and that's really tough.
It is. And I think that, like, going back to what we were talking about with this awakening process, I think that is one of the biggest challenges that we face in that, because that's what we're being asked to do, is to take full responsibility.
I would never do that. I don't want to experience that.
Yeah.
And we have this like immediate resistance
Absolutely.
to taking that responsibility, because we think to ourselves, I would never create that. And the challenge with that is that you are creating it unconsciously with negative thoughts, with negative emotions, with negative patterns. And maybe they're not yours. Maybe they're inherited, and then we can tap into programming from our parents, our families, ancestral trauma, generational trauma, and the repetition based on our culture and society and the time and place that we're born into. And all of that's a separate conversation, but suffice to say for right now that taking personal responsibility for our creation or can also catalyze us into conscious co-creation, right? Because more often than not, we're creating our reality unconsciously, which is why we're getting all of the things that we don't want, because we're not catching ourselves. We haven't yet taken the personal responsibility for thoughts, feelings, emotions, choices, law of cause and effect, all of this kind of stuff. So we're just doing presence, awareness, present moment. Because our internal realm is not under our control. It seems like it's happening to us.
Yeah.
And so personal responsibility is huge. Huge.
And I think also too, to get a more objective picture as well, to see that again, in taking this responsibility, is understanding as well that the universe is not punishing us or rewarding us. It is just giving us our energy back.
Yeah.
And eventually it's understanding that, okay, if we're the ones co-creating and we're working towards the desires we want to create, then we can achieve that. But to stop thinking of it in this, black and white way of reward and punishment. Like, okay, if I do what I'm supposed to do, I'll get rewarded. If I don't do, then I'll get punished. This kind of goes into, again, those negative religious upbringings that where we, we're taught about heaven and hell.
Right.
But it's translating that heaven and hell into suffering and love. And to see what we're ultimately working towards is love, and self-love, love for our world, love for our humanity, love for our universe. And so how are we taking responsibility in this moment to create that love? Because if we are thinking thoughts of not love, of self-hate and self-loathing, or hate for our neighbor, community, world, universe, etc., then all we're doing is perpetuating that suffering. So if we don't want to live in a world of suffering, and we don't want to live in that reality, we have to take responsibility for that. But it's not because there's some God in the sky that's like,
to learn that
Yes.
and remind ourselves of that as an opportunity to know ourselves better so that we can love ourselves better, right? And so rather than seeing situations in life as something that's happening to us as punishment or reward for what we're acting like or what we think we deserve or whatever, seeing every experience in a more holistic, sort of open kind of way that's not limited by duality of right, wrong, good, bad, up, down, black, white, all of these things. Like stepping out of that is what we talk about on the path of yoga. It's stepping out of duality and into this perspective of everything is an experience, and every experience can bring me closer to myself or move me farther away from myself. And so in this experience that I'm having, what is the lesson? What is the teaching? And how can I use this teaching to bring me closer to myself, which ultimately gives us a greater understanding of ourselves and an ability to practice loving ourselves, having compassion for the journey that we're all on, and sort of moving through it with grace and ease instead of struggle and resistance.
Being guilt and shame
Oh,
around.
guilt and shame are useless emotions that serve no other purpose than to keep you separated from yourself. And again, if you've are useless and they literally serve no purpose at all other than to block you from yourself, to block you from the experience of yourself, of self-love.
Yeah.
And then we're in our state of suffering. And then if we're in a cycle of guilt and shame, should, shouldn't, would, could have, not done, ever, whatever, then we're also creating from that same energetic vibration, and then there goes the cycle. Yeah. Whoa. So multiple realities, multiple timelines, different versions of yourself existing simultaneously at all times. This is what we're talking about. We're going to drop into dimensions and portals because that's what we're prepping for tomorrow, right up until the 12th of August. We have a full moon that's coming up on Thursday. It's just powerful energy to access yourself, your higher intelligence in different time-space realities to get you on your highest timeline. And so we think about dimensions and portals. So portal is a gateway. We're coming up on 8-8 portal, which is connected back to the ancient Egyptians and Atlantis and and maybe if you feel to share a little bit about the 8-8 and the portal that we have the potential to access for Lionsgate.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I always like to explain when we're talking about these portals is just to see that it is cosmic energy that is supporting our human development. And it's just saying that there's these key moments in time where we have access to this energy. Now, in some ways you could say we have access to this energy at all times. But there's just these moments in time where the energy is amplified and emphasized.
Yes.
And so we have these moments where we can actively choose to work with this energy and use it to our advantage, basically. Specifically with the 8-8 portal. So this is often called the Lionsgate portal. It has to do with the fact that we are in Leo season. It's to do with a star alignment. And what we want to see is the reason why we are working with this energy is because we're being given this cosmic alignment and downloads in this time specifically. Systems like Sirius and magical moment.
Hashtag 30 days of magic.
And yeah, and that we can utilize this magic. Now, specifically when we're working with the number 8 vibration, so again, like we were saying, like 8 is representative of this energy of infinity. This is why the infinity symbol is just the 8 on its side. But what we want to see is that 8 is the number of the visionary. This is about being able to see where we're going and understanding what can we do today to create where we want to go.
Yes.
But it's asking us to see this for all of humanity,
right.
Not just ourselves.
Never just ourselves.
The evolution we're
for the
going
benefit
through.
of all, always.
Exactly.
Sorry, I just wanted to drop that in.
And but it is seeing that it's like yes, all of this personal work that we're doing isn't just about us. It's about how are we creating the blueprint of
right.
what we are creating for everybody, and then becomes the energy that we pass down to the generations that follow, and to see the energetic footprint that we're leaving has an impact. So again, it talks about that, taking full responsibility for that. So the 8 is asking us to tap into this greater vision. Up 1,000 times to do this. Like, it's not just like, okay, I want to oh, it's there. This is us saying, like, we need to master this energy. If this is the energy we want the world to become, then we need to master it within ourselves, and we need to show up every single day to practice this energy. So if I want to walk into a future of joy, I need to wake up every day and practice joy. If I want to work towards an energy of peace, then I got to wake up every day and practice peace. Yes. And I can't just say that one time's enough. It's like every single day I've got to show up this way. So this is taking a huge amount of responsibility, and 8 is really asking us to see it's not just about you. Yeah. It's about everybody. And it's also saying that for each of us that take this responsibility, we contribute to the tipping point of all of humanity that then propels all of us in that direction. Because if that's the choice we're being given, especially in this time and place of where we're at, is to say, are we just going to keep living life the same way? Are we just going to keep perpetuating the same consciousness? Or are we all going to do our part that propels us in this new direction? And that's, again, where we're talking about these different timelines. It's like we can choose that timeline of suffering and of repetitive, war and, awful behaviors that we've been doing for millennia. But I think we're sick and tired of that. Yeah. And we can see that in the collective now. We're all sick and tired of creating the world that we have. To take responsibility for the part we.
That before I lose it, I want to say to that end is that when we're thinking about everything that you said, this new timeline, the new experience, this new earth, all of this, it starts within. Yeah. Right? And just to bring that home for a second, because it can feel overwhelming. My teacher said to me one time, she's like, okay, Anjali, so your journey right now is to meditate and receive the steps for the next stage of evolution for people on the planet. No pressure. Okay, great. Thank you. Let me just go home and sit with that responsibility for a minute. But really, this bigger responsibility that we're talking about, we can boil right down to just within, like within myself. Like, how can I affect the direction of humanity? How could I, as one person, just sitting here where I am, create, and again, coming back to the law of cause and effect, right? It's like that every thought, every emotion, every feeling, every action does have a ripple effect. And the power and magnitude of that understanding is that as I heal and as I learn and as I find self-love, compassion, peace, joy, and I integrate all of that into myself and into my daily experience, that is having a ripple effect. It's like Dolores Cannon, she said in a reel that I watched the other day, you can walk through a shopping mall full of people in your own energy, being the light and the love that you are, And you just walking through this crowded shopping mall is going to affect, your energy is going to affect every single person in that building. And we have different sayings like this. It's the butterfly flaps its wings on the other side of the planet and it affects the waves on this side, right? It's really understanding our power to affect our environment, our communities, the planet, the evolution of humanity, and where we want to go. And this is a big responsibility that is daunting. And I know yesterday I was mad about it.
Yeah.
Right? Yesterday I was mad. I was just in a negative space where I was like, challenging and difficult to just constantly show up, to show up every day. It is hard and it's not easy. And the path of spirituality, the path of awakening, the path of ascension, it's just tough.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just tough, and we need each other to stay focused, to stay grounded, to help us remind. But if we are alone, we have to find ways to nourish ourselves, to encourage ourselves, to show up for ourselves. And so yesterday for me, that looked like not being on social media at all. And, just, doing what I had to do to honor my commitments, but then also recognizing that I need to honor my body. I'm tired. I need to rest. I need to recharge. And that's going to look different for everybody. Just like, sometimes we need to make choices to just pause and nourish ourselves. And because it is an everyday, all the time thing that sometimes we have to consciously say and recognize, I need to sleep, I need to prioritize my health, I need to meditate, dance, move my body, whatever, recenter, integrate, fuel myself back up to show up here with you all this morning with my good friend Michelle. In case you're just joining us, we're talking about demystifying the mystical. We're 45 minutes in. This is going fast. I want to share with you guys right now that you've heard us say some of these things, the third point that came out for me this morning in my meditation was, once you know, you can't unknow. And this is the tricky part of awakening and becoming aware of the things that we're talking about: dimensions, portals, multiple realities, your personal responsibility in that process for yourself, the choices that you make cause and effect. Once you know the truth, you cannot unknow the truth. That just sucks, but it's just the reality. So and I think that this is an important part of awakening, our awakening journey. We cannot rationalize, we cannot make sense of with logic, we cannot think our way around it to understand it or to even qualify it with words and language, because it really just is a feeling. And we can cultivate a relationship with our body that supports us in understanding what truth feels like, so that when we hear it, we recognize it. When we encounter one another in our truest essence, in our vulnerability, in our honesty, we feel each other in a different way. And so once we understand what truth feels like, it really just becomes a choice. And so the choice that I want to talk about for a moment is the choice to expand or the choice to contract. Because that's really kind of what we're going through. So we hear truth, we understand it as truth, we can't intellectualize it or qualify it, we can't make sense of it, we either feel it as truth or not, and then what do we do with that? So we're going to choose to expand our perception or
same time. To fight against this new truth. And I think we struggle with the idea of, needing one truth to be right and another truth to be wrong. Where I think the process is really about sitting with both truths and then making that choice to evolve into a new level of truth, not through forcing the old truth to be wrong,
right?
But to work towards it becoming obsolete,
right?
Where it no longer is relevant, where it no longer matters.
Because it was true at one point,
exactly,
right? And one point in my reality, this was true. It was my truth. It was my experience in that moment, based on all the moments that led up to that. And so it's not about wiping that away or being like, oh, I was wrong. I was so stupid. How could I think like that? It's like, no, given the understanding that I had in that moment and the experiences that I had, that was my truth.
Mm-hmm.
And now through new else can be true. And I think that the allowance of the shape shifting of truth is really important. Thing, right? The Kabbalion teaches us every truth is but a half truth, right? Everything is like, well, it's true for you in your perception and your state of awareness. And being able to allow truths to be movable,
yes,
I think is something that a lot of people struggle with.
Absolutely.
What would you tell them to do?
Well, it's just that, like, just consider, like, just allow space again for many truths to exist in one space again, rather than needing to qualify right or wrong. And I think a lot of things that around truth is that we've been taught to judge and criticize truth. And I think it's about dropping the judgments and criticisms and just exploring truth to say, well, what does this mean to be true? What is possible if I allow this truth? It doesn't mean you have to commit to it. It just means that you're allowing space to explore it. And I think especially like what we're facing in our world today, where we are, so often like battling truths, of saying I'm right, you're wrong, this is good, this is bad, these things, this duality, and seeing it's like, well, that's not really what it's about. It's about being able, first of all, to recognize that every truth that we have because of my whole life of experience. And so being able to recognize that within each other, so to drop the judgments and criticisms, to be able to just say, you know what, I can see through your life experience, that's how you got to that truth.
Right.
To see that for ourselves. But then in that moment, to also be like, okay, can I consider a different truth? And again, get out of the judgments and criticisms. Can I just be open? Again, I don't have to choose it. I just have to be considerate. And in doing that, we allow ourselves to drop some of the parameters that limit our experience. Because if we commit to a truth, like we're saying, that's
we're
stagnant,
locked in.
And that's it. That's our whole life experience.
And we'll nothing else. And that's so old paradigm.
Exactly.
This is so old paradigm thinking. It's just like, we do not any longer have to be limited or constrained by these outdated constructs of society, family systems, belief systems, religious ideology, what even career and what we can do. Most of us are doing jobs in our life right now that weren't even invented 30 years ago. So how could they even be an option? It's like, if I wasn't open to the possibility of something outside of the norm of truth, then I would be, working at a post office or something. Like in Canada, like my family limited by that as the only truth. And for multiple truths to potentially exist.
That's it. And to choose different truths.
Choose different truths.
And it's giving ourselves the space for that. Yeah. Because if every time we judge or criticize a new truth that enters our field, that's us rejecting and pushing something away that could be offering us potential, like opportunities and outcomes that we've never considered before. Just by allowing it is what opens these possibilities. Yeah.
And that's the expansion. So expansion feels like in your body openness, possibility, probably fear mixed with excitement. And so let's just touch on contraction and what that feels like. And contraction to me in my body feels limiting. It feels restrictive. It feels like shutting down. It feels like hiding. And I think that you can't unknow that, again, we have free will. Again, it is up to you to choose expansion or know the consequences of choosing contraction will show up as suffering in your life. It will show up as finding ways to numb out, to disassociate, depression, anxiety, fear, spiraling down these strong rabbit holes. Soothing ourselves with addictive patterning around food and alcohol, sex, drugs, toxic relationships, gossip, all of these, more judgment, more comparison, and just this cycling through all of that toxicity. And that's just what contraction is. There's not really any way to sugarcoat that.
But again, it goes back to that point of what we made in the beginning about eventually we get sick of cycling in all of that we find the courage within ourselves to say, no, I'm not going to do this anymore. I've had enough. I'm going to step out into the unknown, the fool card, right? I'm going to fucking do it. I'm going to do it scared. I'm going to do it without knowing. I'm going to go into it blindly, because anything that when we get to that place, that's where healing happens. That's where potential exists. Is that anything is better than this. And as we move through the awakening process multiple times in lots of different ways, it just becomes the obvious choice. It's like, it's not a struggle anymore. There is no more resistance. It's just like, okay, like at this stage, I know it's going to feel scary. I know I don't know what I'm doing. I know I don't know what I'm going to say until I open my mouth and the words come out. And even then, I don't even know what's coming out until I listen back to it later. And I'm like, oh, fuck, I don't know where that came from. And then that just becomes the lifestyle. Yes. Yeah.
And that's where we are. And people can glamorize it. Let's just touch on that before we move into our collective reading. Michelle's going to pull a couple of cards for the collective energy for those of you that have stuck with us or are tuning in at different times. People can look at our life and be like, oh, well, easy for you to say, Michelle, you live here on the most beautiful lake in the world, and you can choose what you want to do. And I find it really challenging sometimes when people say to me, yeah, well, you're so lucky. Or, well, yeah, obviously it's easy for you. Look at your life. And it's like, well, how do you think my life got to be like this, right? It got to be like this because we made hard choices. We went through the cycling. We sacrificed. We sacrificed certainty. We sacrificed safety, security. We sacrificed family relationships. We sacrificed friendships.
Fitting in,
looking the same, acting the same, talking the same, the comforts of the developed world, reliability on things like internet, electricity. It's not an easy choice to make. And it's easy to glamorize a life that we're blessed to have. But it didn't just happen.
Exactly.
Nothing happens just overnight.
And if I could tell you the amount of nights that I sat in tears and in anger and in fear, and the polarity of like swinging back and forth to being so sure, so certain, and so strong, to then being a complete mess. Still at times going through that. It's easy to show up and talk in these ways in a moment where I feel very strong and empowered, but there are still moments where it's
I was just moving around my house this morning. Not that it's scary. Let's rework that word for a second. It's because whether we're nervous or excited or anxious, our nervous system can't tell the difference, and so all of these emotions they get tangled into one. It's just really not knowing.
Yes, yeah, and
right?
then getting
it's
to
just
a place
not
of
knowing,
being okay with that,
and being okay with not knowing. You gotta make peace with it, guys. This is the way.
And eventually, you just realize it's better that
way
than sticking with what we know and continuing to suffer. Yeah.
I mean, that's what we feel. So let us know in the comments how you feel and what about this has resonated for you. And if nothing, that's cool. Then see ya. And that's okay too. So make your choice. And Michelle is going to pull. How many cards are you going to pull?
I think I'm going to pull 3 cards.
3 cards.
And we're just going to talk about the collective energy that is surrounding each of us that are tuned in this moment.
Yeah.
And it's just going to be a little bit to look at, what can we let go of, maybe some limiting patterns and beliefs that are we're struggling with. What action we can take to move past that, and then what energy we become because of that. So yeah.
So let's dive into that.
I'm using the Light Seers deck.
The best deck right now.
And cards maybe fly out.
Now we're going to take 4.
Ooh, we'll use this as
the
guiding principle. So as the guiding principle overall, we get the 4 of Cups. This is a card that is offering us a chance to reflect and contemplate. Sometimes we get so overwhelmed with trying to do different things and trying to keep ourselves busy that we forget that one of the most important things we can do is to do nothing. And doing nothing actually...
That was my post yesterday.
Oh,
action in inaction.
That's right, yeah. Yes. So great that we're getting that reinforcement again, because it's reminding us of that balance. It's saying if we're constantly being active, we lead to burnout.
Yes.
And this serves nobody. When we take the time to relax and let go and nourish ourselves, this also gives us a chance to tap into our truth. So sometimes, like with the subject of truth, sometimes we just need time to process what that means to us and what we're being exposed to. And this is saying to give ourselves the time and space to feel into our truth instead of just being on autopilot and go, go, go. This is one of the greatest gifts we can give ourselves, and especially when we're getting. What we're getting as a energy to heal at this time is the Knight of Wands. So this is interesting because the Knight of Wands directly relates to the Leo energy. This is a representative of the court card that represents the energy of Leo. So this is reminding us that, it takes courage to try something new. Sometimes we have to take risks in life. And it's looking at just what we were saying a minute ago about fear versus excitement.
Right.
These are the same feelings. And sometimes when we're on the precipice of taking a risk, we'll feel a lot of fear. But we could actually change that into understanding it's really excitement.
It's really exciting.
And if we can see it from that perspective, we're more likely to take that leap of faith. And so it's asking us to see it from that way so that we can have the courage to take the risk and to see that there's a lot more joy in life when we're taking risks. This is about go on the adventure, do the things that you've wanted to do and enjoy all the ways that life can, all the places life can take you. It's also reminding us that the journey of life isn't meant to be in a straight line. We're meant to go You know, like for instance, we're talking about, you know, different country. You know, the first moment that I landed in Guatemala, I was like, what the fuck am I doing here?
I didn't even know what Guatemala was. like on a map.
But I'll tell you, the adventure that has unfolded for me over 16 years, that I thought was only going to be 6 months, by the way, has taken me in directions and places that I could never have imagined. And if I wouldn't have taken that leap, who would I be? Where would I be? Well, I would be stuck in Canada, and we all know what nightmare that is right now. And so I'm thankful I'm here.
You all love if you're in Canada right now.
Yes, for sure. So this is reminding us, do the adventure, take the risk, take that leap. Don't be stupid, but also don't hold back.
Got it.
And then we have the magician. So this is the energy that's showing up for action we can take. And this is everything about what we were talking about in this awakening process. The magician is about awakening to our personal power. And it's reminding us that every way that we define ourselves determines how we use our power. I am fearful and I am, you know, limited and I am unworthy and unloved and these things.
I am sick. I'm tired.
Yes.
I don't have enough, right? It's like I am two most powerful words in the English language.
Yes.
That is the precipice of our spell casting.
Yes,
right?
exactly.
So whenever we say I am, that's basically what we're creating. It is the first sort of, I guess, I don't know how to say it, but you know, like
it's just the setting of intention.
The most powerful word. It's like owning it. It's identifying with it. It's like I am this means that I am that. And so what am I saying that I am? Because that's my whole identification now. So I am sad. I'm frustrated. I am lonely. Well, then that's what you're going to be. I am happy, I am joyful, I am at peace, well then that's what you're going to be. And so really, really powerful. I'm so glad that came up right now.
And that's the action that we're being asked to take, is to define those I ams. And to extend on that is also the I can and I cannot. And again, to be aware, it's like, how are we defining our reality with these words, and how can we take our power,
our personal responsibility for what we're speaking into existence. For the feeling, let's dive all the way back. Like how you feel in your body influences what you think. The things that you think influence what you speak. What you speak into existence is what becomes your reality. So you want to get down to the core of it, then get your energy right. Then get your thoughts right. And then speak only the truth. And then that's what we create.
Exactly.
So good.
And seeing that everything is created from this, because the magician is the number one, and so it's saying like it all begins here. Everything else is an extension of this. So if we can take control at this point, then everything else will just be an extension of the energy we manifest.
Total magic.
And then this is the essence we're moving into, which is beautiful.
9 of Cups.
The 9 of Cups. So what we see here is a celebration of energy. It's saying that in taking control of our magic in the way that we're being encouraged by taking these risks and going on these adventures, what we discover is our own happiness. And it's discovering it's not just the thought of happiness, it's the feeling, the energy of happiness. And you see in this card, it's just exuding out from our heart because we've come into that heart center and we're totally honoring who we are, why we're here, and we feel it so thoroughly and so ecstatically. And so it's a beautiful place to be. So it's saying we can master this part of ourselves, we will find our true path of happiness. happiness, and it will be something that we can then share with the whole world around us. So
Yeah.
beautiful things.
Yay. You guys, that sums it up. That's Lionsgate Portal, Jumping Realities, Timelines, Awakening, all of the things. You know, we thought we'd be on here for 20 minutes. If you have stuck with us this whole time, thank you so much.
Yes,
And we're just so grateful. We're so excited to just do something different, step out of our own comfort zone, and primarily just to support you wherever you are in your journey. If you need additional support, please message us. We are here for you. We got you. You can DM. Or private sessions or readings if you're vibing on the whole you know how to reach out and find me for that. Otherwise, you guys, 30 days of magic. Stay tuned. This week is going to be powerful. It's going to be challenging. And I'll see you tomorrow. So thanks for hanging out. We're out of here.